Now, the thing about Donkey is he never shuts the fuck up, and he and I have that in common. Hi besties and welcome to Farhad. Listen, we don't have a lot of time. The planet's falling apart, man. The planet is falling apart. And since our impending doom is coming sooner than any of us actually anticipated, I figured it's time to use my channel and my platform to speak on some of the issues that are really plaguing our world right now. So, today we're talking about Shrek. If you're new here, my name is Farhad. I make weekly videos on YouTube. If you're a returning subscriber, hey bestie, how you doing? Why did my voice crack? I recently rewatched our beloved Oscar-winning animated film, Shrek. And let me tell you, 20 years on, it still fucking slaps. Since its release, Shrek has gone on to make almost $500 million at the global box office. It was the first ever Oscar for Best Animated Film. And as we know, it's launched the iconic Shrek cinematic universe, which includes things like the 3 sequels that they made. They made a Puss in Boots series. I think there's another one coming out this year, actually. There's multiple short films, there's a TV series, there's books, there's a whole franchise around Shrek. But today we're focusing on the first Shrek film, titled Shrek. There are no flaws. Not one, not one. There's not a flaw in sight. There's no flaws. It is a masterpiece from start to finish. Side note here, I also think the animated Mulan film is also flawless. So I might make a video about that one too. So stay tuned for that.
She's got a point. She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment. Now, come on now.
So in this video, we're going to do a little recap of Shrek. We're going to talk about the movie. We're going to talk about some of the standout moments. We're going to talk about some of my favorite scenes and what the messages of the movie are and kind of just go back and appreciate this movie for what it is. A freaking good movie. But before we begin, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, man. It helps my channel out like crazy. And also subscribe to the channel and turn on your bell notifications so you never miss a chance to hear me gassing about whatever it is I'm talking about that day. So let's do a little bit of recap of Shrek together. So we start the film with Shrek. From Shrek fame. Now, Shrek is an ogre. He lives in a little secluded swamp in a forest just outside a city or a town, I guess, called Duloc. And look, Shrek's having a great time. He's kind of living my ideal life, you know, just secluded away from people, living on his own, hanging out, just chilling. And look, yes, Shrek's a little antisocial. He's a little bit introverted. He likes to fart in his own swimming pool, like things that we all do. He's not harming anyone. He's not being a nuisance. He's not being aggressive. He's just minding his own business. He does like to scare people when people come into his swamp and try and either hunt him down or attack him or annoy him or anything like that. And you know what? I can't blame him. I mean, if I lived in a swamp and a bunch of angry white men with tiki torches came knocking on my door, girl, I'd be pissed too. So next we find out that there is a reward for any fairy tale creature who is handed into Lord Farquaad, the ruler of Duloc, because he's decided that he wants to exile all magical creatures outside of his little town. Now, why does he want to exile all these creatures? I'll tell you why. Racism. That's fucking right. This movie's about racism. Think about it. I mean, I told you we'd be peeling back the layers of Shrek, so here we go. Also, side note, people have been calling me Lord Farquaad for my entire freaking life because, well, you know, kids can be cruel. And I guess our names kind of sound the same if you're like, you know, an idiot. So anyway, Lord Farquaad's minions are basically getting all these fairy tale creatures from people handing them over. And here we meet Donkey, a talking donkey. All right, so this king is voiced by Eddie Murphy, who we all know and love. Now, the thing about Donkey is he never shuts the fuck up. And he and I have that in common. So I really respect him for that. And I really want him to do well in life. So Donkey's accidentally peppered with some fairy dust and manages to fly away from the people trying to capture him. And he runs off. And here he meets Shrek, our beloved Shrek. King Donkey starts to follow Shrek around because he's like, oh, this guy can protect me. He's big and strong. No one will want to take me if I'm running around with Shrek. And you know what? The logic is there, so I don't blame him for that. Donkey's following Shrek into his home. And here we meet the biggest star of the film, this rock. Now, the rock joke, iconic. It never gets old. It's still in my head. Every time I see a nice rock, I'm like, that is a nice boulder. Donkey then decides to stay with Shrek and tells him about how Lord Farquaad is essentially rallying all these magical creatures and exiling them out of the town because he doesn't want them around and he wants to kind of rule Duloc with any kind of threat or anyone who's able to kind of question his authority. But Shrek's all like, oh, I don't care. I'm Shrek. I only care about me. He doesn't speak like that. If you haven't seen the movie, this is going to be a very confusing recap. But in a crazy turn of events, Shrek walks outside and sees that all the magical creatures have found refuge in his swamp. I'd be pissed too. That's right, his secluded little private swamp has become full of all these creatures escaping their hellhole. And now it's the ghetto. The ghetto!
Ooh! Ah, the ghetto! The ghetto! The ghetto!
And all the fairy tale creatures are hanging around Shrek's house and they're just like, ooh, I'm in me Shrek swamp, vroom vroom. And Shrek's all angry like, get out me swamp. And the creatures are like, oh. But they don't leave. They don't leave because they know that Shrek will protect them because they think he's protecting Donkey, but he's not really. Like, Shrek's only in it for himself, but that's what we love about him. So Shrek's getting annoyed and he's like, all right, what do I got to do to get all these motherfuckers out of my swamp? And Donkey's like, well, you could go up to Lord Farquaad and tell him what's up. And Shrek's like, all right, I'll do that. Like, why not? I got nothing else to do. Shrek doesn't work. Shrek doesn't have a 9 to 5. Shrek's just at home, hanging out, farting in his swamp, like scratching his back with shit, eating bugs. Like, that's a great life. Somewhere in humanity we went wrong because we should all be living like Shrek, but here we are. And here I am making a video about a guy that I wish I was. Oh my god, I wish I was Shrek. And we then see Lord Farquaad asking Snow White's magic mirror, like, hey man, like, I'm the Lord, but I want to be a king. How do I officially become a king? Like, what do I got to do? And the mirror's all like, hey dumbass, all you got to do is marry a princess because then you'll become a prince and then automatically become a king because there's no king, I guess. So then the mirror's like, all right, I found 3 princesses that you could marry to become a king. First up, we got Snow White, we got Cinderella, and we got this bitch named Princess Fiona who just sleeps all day, but she's hot, so that's cool. And obviously Lord Farquaad chooses Princess Fiona because she's clearly the hottest one, and as we know, men are dumb and they can't think beyond their dicks, so here we are. Probably why a lot of us are alive today, if I'm being completely honest. So Shrek shows up to Lord Farquaad's castle and he's like, motherfucker, like, what do I gotta do to get these motherfuckers out of my swamp? Like, I'm trying to fart in peace, and these people can't let me fart because if I fart in front of these creatures, they're all gonna die from the odor, and like, what the fuck do I do, man? What the fuck? Like, Shrek's just been holding in all these farts for days. He's like, man, this is no way to live a life. And he's right, it's not. That's how you get sick. So Lord Farquaad's like, all right, look, man, I'll level with you. If you go out and hunt down Princess Fiona and bring her back to the castle for me, I will expel all the fairy tale creatures away from your swamp ass. I will expel all the fairy tale creatures out of your swamp and you'll be free to live your life in peace and private just like you want. So do we have a deal, bestie? And then Shrek makes a joke about Farquaad's tiny penis, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, that's funny. So Shrek accepts this offer, and he and Donkey go on their merry little way to save Princess Fiona and essentially sex traffic her to Lord Farquaad so he can become a king. So that's a little bit questionable morality, but we still love Shrek. Well, it all works out, I guess. It's okay. Not a good way to excuse sex trafficking. So on their journey to find Princess Fiona, Donkey continues to not shut the fuck up, and it starts to irritate Shrek, and they get into like all these heated discussions and all these heated arguments, and Shrek's not having it. He's not having a bar of it. And here we have one of the most famous quotes from Shrek that I think is so iconic and so inspirational and so meaningful that I've decided to recite it word for word from the script, which I have on hand here. So the setup here is that Donkey tells Shrek, hey, you're a big green ogre. Why don't you go back over there and punch Lord Farquaad in the face and like tell him what you want and take what you want because you're so big and powerful. Like, why are you doing his like dirty work for him? And Shrek responds, for your information, there's a lot more to ogres than people think. Donkey, example? Shrek, example? Okay, ogres are like onions. Donkey, they stink? Shrek, yes, no. Donkey, they make you cry. Shrek, no. Donkey, you leave them in the sun, they get all brown, start sprouting little white hairs. Shrek, no. Layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers. You get it? We both have layers. I'll give you a moment to wipe your tears away from this extraordinary writing. Also, side note, I was going to try and do Shrek's accent here, but I just thought, let's not go down that road. Now, when I say that Shrek is a better writer and a better poet than William Shakespeare, I'm not exaggerating at all. Essentially, Shrek is saying that ogres are like onions because they are multifaceted, they are complex and layered beyond their physical appearance. Shrek is saying that despite his exterior, he's not there to attack people or scare people or anything. He's just there to like be himself, you know? He just wants to do Shrek, and sometimes I think I want to do Shrek. Wait, what? And this is long before any of this toxic positivity that we've been seeing in like social media a lot lately, and just makes me think like Shrek was so ahead of its time, man. So ahead. So Shrek and Donkey then get to the castle where Princess Fiona is being held, and there's some big ass dragon in the way, and they're just like, what the fuck? What's this dragon doing here, man? So then Shrek runs off to find Fiona, and Donkey's there trying to distract the dragon, and then he gets captured by her. And then the dragon kind of bats her eyelids at him very seductively. And here, my friends, we have our first romantic beast storyline of the film franchise Shrek. A donkey and a dragon. Cross-species love, man. Now, using their wits and obvious sex appeal, Shrek and Donkey manage to evade the dragon and find Princess Fiona. So they drag her out of there and she's kicking and screaming like, no, this isn't how we're supposed to be. You're supposed to kiss me. You gotta break the spell. Like, what are you taking me for? Like, Shrek has to like physically force her out. Clearly, Fiona here is just like super H-word and just needs to get laid. Or get a vibrator. Whichever one works. Probably the vibrator, to be honest. So Fiona is quickly disappointed when she finds out that Shrek, her knight in shining armor, takes off his helmet and is revealed to be a big green ogre. And she's all like, oh no, I'm not going to Lord Farquaad. Like, if he wants to save me, he better come over here and kiss my ass. Like, what the fuck? And Shrek's not having a bar of it. He's like, girl, I came all this way. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Let's go. We gotta get over. We got things to do. So Shrek has to physically force her to come back with her and Donkey. And, you know, on their journey back to Lord Farquaad's castle, Shrek and Fiona start to develop, you know, some feelings. They start to talk a little bit. They start to know each other a little bit. And Fiona starts to realize that Shrek isn't the person that she initially thought she was. He was. Shit. And you guys, romantic storyline number 2 right here. Shrek and Fiona. A couple for the ages. I mean, they're an icon. They're a legend, and they are the moment. So our little ragtag gang of besties are traveling to Lord Farquaad's castle, and on their way, Shrek reveals to Donkey that he struggles a lot with the way people perceive him and the kind of expectations that they have based on his appearance. And, you know, this is a very common trait that a lot of people have. People do feel very self-conscious about their appearance. They start to feel like people judge them before they know them and all these different things that I'm sure every single person in the world can relate to at some extent. And, you know, while Shrek's pouring his heart out to Donkey, Fiona overhears him. Oh my God, there's like a big white stain on my jumper. It's not what you think. So Fiona overhears all this and starts to feel a little bit empathetic. So she thinks, you know what, like, I should probably be nicer to this sexy ogre man because, H-word. So the next day, Fifi makes some breakfast for them, which is kind of a peace offering, you know, just to bring them together, bring the gang together, and they're all like very appreciative. They're loving it. They're eating eggs or something. And on their little journey, Robin Hood and his merry band of men find Princess Fiona, and they think that she's Shrek's prisoner, which, again, racism. And, you know, it's just men looking at appearances and not the beautiful, delicate green layers that Shrek has. So Robin Hood's trying to kidnap Princess Fiona, and she's not having it. She's like, girl, I did not stay up in that castle all these years for be taken by a skinny white man. No, thank you. So here we have another iconic scene for the history books. Girl boss Fiona does like some Matrix level fighting and manages to kick all their asses on her own. And, you know, she's no damsel in distress. She's a damsel in a dress. So Shrek becomes very impressed by Fiona. He's like, I love a girl who can fight people for me. Like, that's hot. So later that night, Princess Fiona starts to see the sun setting and she's like, oh, girl, we gotta go.
Oh, now we gotta go?
So Donkey discovers Princess Fiona's deep, dark secret. When the sun sets, she becomes an ogre. An ogress. Is that a word? Ogress? Lady ogre. No, I don't like that. Ogre-lita. Oh. Ogress. Ogre. You know, let's just call her an ogre as well. So we learned that when Princess Fiona was a child, a evil witch or something placed a curse on her that turns her into an ogre at sunset. The only way for the curse to be broken is if she finds true love's kiss, and then she'll be back to her beautiful, normal self. So she believes that true love's kiss will break the curse, and she's hoping that Lord Farquaad will kiss her, and that will break the curse, and she'll be back to her human self forever. But we'll see, I guess. So Fiona starts talking about how she's very insecure as an ogre, and she's all like, oh, how can anyone love something so ugly? I'm an ugly beast. But our bestie Shrek overhears this, but doesn't see what's going on. I think it's through a door or some shit. And Shrek thinks that Fiona is talking about him being an ugly beast. Shrek is heartbroken. Oh my God, I'm heartbroken. So Shrek is understandably heartbroken. He thinks that he's been having a really good rapport with Fiona. He thinks they're building a relationship. He's like, maybe I will steal her away from Lord Farquaad. But then he hears this and he's like, oh shit, she doesn't love me. She hates me. She thinks I'm an ugly beast. Sorry, this movie is very upsetting. But, you know, guys, come on. Like, communication is key in any good relationship. If these two motherfuckers just spoke to each other, they would have avoided so much carnage. Although I guess it turns out pretty well in the end, but I won't spoil it for you just yet. So anyway, the next day, Lord Farquaad shows up to where they are, and he's like, oh, Princess Fiona, it's me, it's Lord Farquaad, come and marry me. Fiona actually decides to go with Lord Farquaad despite knowing he's kind of an asshole. And she almost does it out of spite because Shrek's kind of being an asshole to her, but he's being an asshole to her because he thought that she was being an asshole to him. But then everything kind of falls apart. They all go their separate ways. Fiona goes off to live with Lord Farquaad and starts to prepare for their wedding. Shrek goes back to his empty swamp and is hanging around all alone and sad. Donkey, we know where Donkey is. But Shrek's in his swamp. He's got everything he wanted in the first place. He just wanted to be left alone. He just wanted to be by himself. But obviously during his journey with Fiona and Donkey, he's learnt to love his friends and obviously Fiona in a romantic way. And he's kind of feeling like, oh, maybe being alone in my swamp isn't what I wanted. Maybe I do want love. Maybe I do want friendship. Shrek. He misses Fiona, he misses Donkey, and he's all depressed, and it's just, baby. Shrek. You deserve better, Shrek. You deserve better. But luckily, Donkey shows up and he's all like, Shrek, what are you doing? She's gonna marry Lord Farquaad. You gotta go do something about it. And Shrek's all like, no, she thinks I'm an ugly beast. Why would she ever love me? And Donkey's all like, oh no, bestie, she wasn't talking about you. She was talking about someone else. I won't tell you who, but you know, someone else. But ooh, you gotta go save her. Let's go. And this gives Shrek the kind of courage to be like, oh, maybe she's right. Maybe I gotta go save Fiona. Maybe I gotta do one last gesture. And like every good romantic comedy film, Shrek decides to race to Fiona's wedding to stop her marriage to Lord Farquaad and get with her and have her ogre babies, although he doesn't know she's an ogre yet, but we'll get to that. So Shrek's running to profess his love to Princess Fiona because he knows that Fiona sees the Shrek inside. You know, not Shrek the ogre, but Shrek, the soul under all those beautiful green layers. And she's the first person to ever see Shrek for who he truly is. Oh my God. I'm sorry, I just need a minute. Anyway, Shrek shows up to the wedding and Farquaad's all like, fuck off, I'm about to marry Princess Fiona and become a king. But he makes it and he's all like, stop! And Farquaad's like, no! And Fiona's like, ah! And Donkey's all, I'm gonna fuck that dragon. But Farquaad and his men capture Shrek. They stop him from stopping the wedding. But as Farquaad is about to get married to Fiona, the sun starts to set. And we all know what happens to Fiona when the sun sets. Fiona becomes this sexy ogre woman and Shrek's all like, that's what you meant by ugly beast. His words, not mine. So Farquaad obviously loses his shit and he's all like, fucking kill them all. Fuck these motherfuckers. And just as it looks like Shrek and Fiona are about to be captured, motherfucking Donkey and the dragon show up and they're just like, So the dragon eats Farquaad like it's a little appetizer before a big bowl of bolognese. Shrek, of course, runs to Fiona and he's all like, oh my God, I love you, baby, kiss me. And some little magical shit happens and it looks like the curse is being lifted and Fiona is about to become her normal self again. Plot twist. She stays an ogre. Fiona's all confused. She's like, oh my God, why am I an ogre? I'm supposed to be beautiful. And Shrek looks her in the eye and says, you are beautiful. Do you know what, guys? Like, the Notebook can go eat an ass. Like, there is nothing in the Notebook that is even remotely as romantic as Shrek telling Fiona that he's beautiful, she's beautiful, for being an ogre. Nah. I mean, you can see why Shrek won an Oscar, right? Like, it is iconic. It is so legendary. Anyway, so the movie ends with Shrek and Fiona getting married in the swamp with all their little fairy tale friends around them. Shrek's learned to love. Shrek's learned to have friends. Shrek's learned to not be so antisocial. And he's learned to embrace his community. And then they ride off into the sunset, off to their honeymoon. And that, besties, is Shrek. Okay, so let's get into some analysis. Let's have some discussions about this film because it's so iconic. It is so deserving of the praise. It is such a good film. If anything, I honestly think that Shrek is kind of underrated. Like, yes, it's popular. Yes, everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. Yes, it made a lot of money. Yes, it's, you know, launched a big franchise. But I still think that it's better than what people think it is. Do you know what I mean? Like how I think Taylor Swift is actually very underrated. Like, yes, she's very successful and she's commercially successful, but I think she should be even more successful and even more respected considering how talented she really is. You know what I mean? Like, she should be better and she should be more successful. Like, I think she should have more money than anyone on the planet. quite frankly. Okay, that might have been a bit of a stretch, but you know I'm a Swiftie, so So one of the key themes in Shrek is being true to yourself, and we see that in both Shrek and Princess Fiona. Firstly, Shrek learns to love the person he actually is. He no longer fears the perception of others. He's no longer concerned about the stereotypical ogre appearance or what that means to others. And instead of hiding away, he decides to embrace his ogreness and share that with the world and follow his heart. And Fiona also learns that she doesn't need to be her human self or her beautiful self to be loved. Shrek helps her see the beauty within her, and she learns to embrace that and follow that rather than relying so much on appearances and not so much on what she presents to the rest of the world. Which is a beautiful sentiment for, you know, this hyper pop kids romantic comedy film. Like, it's such a great movie. There's also this theme of money and power not being as important as relationships. And we can kind of see that in Lord Farquaad, who's very much pursuing never-ending power and ultimate power by becoming the king. But despite all his riches and his, you know, kind of rulership over Duloc, he's still very lonely, he's still very sad, especially that scene when he's like, you know, getting all H-word, looking at the three princesses in the front of the magic mirror. And Fiona can kind of see that, and she knows that, you know, that would be a very easy life, but she decides to give it up because she'd rather be with someone who means more to her. Shrek. I'd do it. I'd be with Shrek. If Shrek showed up to my doorstep today, I'd be like, hey. Overall, I think the themes and the messages of Shrek really make it more deserving of the Oscar. And, you know, there's plenty of more themes. There's plenty of more messages. Overall, I think the messages and themes really help push Shrek to be on the next level as opposed to just being a fun animated comedy film. It really makes it something special, and I think that's why it's resonated so well with people, and also why it makes it so deserving of the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, which is also saying something because it was going up against Monsters, Inc. Monsters, Inc. Like, that movie, that's another really fucking good movie, actually, now that I think about it. Flawless. Absolutely flawless. Man, like, kids, well, not kids today, but we kids, you know, us millennials and older Gen Zs, we had some great kids movies to have fun with when we were younger. Although, you know, I'm sure there's some good kids movies that are more recent that are just as meaningful and just as impactful as Shrek, but I can't think of any. So if you know some, let me know in the comments. Okay, besties, so that brings us to the end of today's analysis of the iconic animated film Shrek. This has been the first of what I hope to be many recaps of, you know, other iconic films of yesteryear. If you have a particular film that you would like me to recap similar to this video, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to have another go at this. Also, if you see someone in the comments who's put a suggestion and you're like, yeah, I would like to see that, make sure you like their comment so that I know that lots of people are interested in that movie as well. Does that make sense? It makes sense. You know what I'm talking about. So if you enjoyed this recap, make sure you give the video a like because it really helps my channel out and it will make me know to make more videos like this. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join the Faux Club. We are a fun, wholesome, sassy bunch. What can I say? It's the truth. I'll be posting another Faux Thoughts episode later this week, but as of next week, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. So if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments. And I think that's everything I wanted to say today. So until next time, besties, bye.
Missing someone.